This is the Dogs on the Hill podcast with your host, Reeves Fisackerly.
Welcome back to the Dogs on the Hill podcast. My name is Reeves Fisackerly. I'm your host. It is Wednesday, March 22nd, about 8 in the morning. And I had an insider reach out to me yesterday about Georgetown men's basketball. Patrick Ewing is out. The 2022 Naismith Coach of the Year award winner, Ed Cooley, the former coach of the Providence Friars, is now the head coach of the Georgetown Hoyas. Now, under Patrick Ewing, Georgetown, not the best, to put it lightly. His record as a coach was 75 and 109, 75 wins, 109 losses. And that Patrick Ewing era, at least as him as a coach, went from 2017 until 2023. This past year, Georgetown went on the longest losing streak in conference history, Big East Conference history. They lost 29 games in a row. So I wanted to just break down Ewing's time in Georgetown. Let's look at his record. So 2017, they missed the NCAA tournament. 2018, they missed the NCAA tournament, but they did make the NIT, but they lost in the first round to Harvard. 2019, tournament did not happen, COVID. 2020, they entered as a 12 seed, but they lost in the round of 64 to Colorado. 2021, missed the NCAA tournament. Also, fun fact, they lost all 19 conference games that year. 25 total losses that year, most in school history. And 2022, this year, missed the NCAA tournament with an overall season record of 7-25. That overall record, 75 and 109, that's the lowest win percentage by a Georgetown coach in the modern era. Whatever that is deemed as, it's the lowest. He had a win percentage of 408 overall and 257 in the Big East. So to put it lightly, a lot of room to grow. Pretty bad basketball in the last, what is that? 6 years. Now, Ed Cooley, let's look at him at Providence. He was the coach at Providence for 12 years, really 11 seasons because of the COVID year. But 2011, missed the NCAA tournament. 2013, made it to the round of 64 and lost. Same in 2014. 2015, made it to the round of 32 before losing. 2016, they were in that first four, lost. 2017, lost in the round of 64. 2018, they lost in round one of the NIT. 2019, canceled due to COVID. 2020, missed during, 2020, they just completely missed the tournament. 2021, they went all the way to the Sweet 16 before losing. And in 2022, they lost in the round of 64. So that is, by my count, he made the tournament 7 of those 12 years, 7 of those 11 seasons. However, he only won twice. That part of it is not the most attractive, but he at least made the tournament a lot more. And, I mean, frankly, he won. He at least has tournament wins. I think this definitely helps in recruiting. I think you could use this as, now we have a better coach, and with a better coach, I think you have more resources at Georgetown than you do at Providence. You can use the Georgetown name and being in the city, not the city, but being in Washington, D.C. I think you can use that heavily to your advantage in recruiting. And, if I'm a Georgetown fan, I have no reason to not be excited. You're bringing in a coach whose resume is a lot more impressive, especially over the last 6 years. than the coach who you just most recently had. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Ed Cooley is going to be the head coach of Georgetown men's basketball next year, and Patrick Ewing is out. All right, women's college basketball. We talked about the men's tournament for a pretty good chunk of the show last time. Let's take a peek over at the women's side. So, the women's side also saw 2 number 1 seeds lose before the Sweet 16. Those were Indiana and Stanford. On the men's side, we mentioned that because we saw Purdue lose in the first round to FDU, and we saw Kansas lose in the second round to Arkansas. But I think you could say this is bigger in the women's tournament because all of the number 1 seeds in the women's tournament have always made it to the Sweet 16 dating back to 2009. In other words, a number 1 seed in the women's tournament has not missed the Sweet 16 since 2009. And we just had 2 miss. We had Miami defeat Indiana, which is crazy because in both the men's and women's bracket, Miami beat Indiana to advance to the Sweet 16. I don't know what the odds of that are. I would imagine they're incredibly low. So that's really cool. But the other one was Stanford losing to Ole Miss. That's huge. That's really big. Stanford, powerhouse. I don't know if you want to say dynasty, but definitely one of the big name brands in women's basketball. And who's going to compete with South Carolina now? South Carolina is consistently the number 1 women's basketball team, the team to beat, at least in recent years. And we just lost 2 1 seeds. Stanford was especially considered a favorite. This Ole Miss win is a huge upset. So we had that one. And additionally, Ohio State beats North Carolina. Colorado beats Duke. Louisville beats Texas. That was the one that made social media for being pretty feisty. Things got pretty heated. Tensions were high between the teams there. But yeah, just wanted to mention the women's tournament because we're talking about a lot of the upsets happening on the men's side. There's plenty of them happening on the women's side as well. 2 weeks ago, the Ravens placed the non-exclusive franchise tag on Lamar Jackson, and we have not had anything come to light as to what is going to happen between the two parties. We don't know if they're working on a contract reconstruct or just working on a contract. We don't know of any teams coming in and putting an offer sheet in. It's just pretty much dead silence. Jeff Zrebiec of The Athletic said that it feels like Lamar and the Ravens coming to an extension over the next few months is seeming less and less likely. He also said that the scene in Baltimore is pretty mixed. Fans, of course, want Lamar back. However, they are aware that the situation kind of has the Ravens in a knot. And he also said quote, whether it's fair or unfair, Jackson also lost some support when he missed the last month of the second straight season, end quote. And lastly, Zrebiec said, quote, at this point, it's fair to question how motivated both sides, being the Ravens and Lamar, even are to get a deal done, end quote. So it's hard to comment on the situation because of what I opened with here. There's just nothing happening, or if there is stuff happening, it's not public knowledge at this point. And we've been over this situation at least twice before on the show. Essentially, if you're familiar with hockey terminology, the Ravens made Lamar an RFA. If you don't know what that means, basically this non-exclusive franchise tag it functions as a franchise tag. Lamar will come back next year unless he gets an offer sheet, and that means a team can offer Lamar a contract. But if they do that, it goes to the Ravens first. So the Ravens can either A, agree to pay that amount, and that's Lamar's new contract. So essentially another team just did the contract negotiation for you. Or B, they can say, we don't want to pay that. Give us your just give us 2 first-round picks, and we'll move on. And Lamar goes there. It's a hard position to be in because reportedly Lamar has been asking for north of $250 million guaranteed, something along the lines of a Deshaun Watson contract. And the Ravens are reluctant to give that because, one, that's a lot of guaranteed money. They don't want to go the guaranteed route. Also, Lamar has injuries hanging over his head and the fact that he's only won 1 playoff game in his career. Now, in my opinion, that's not solely on him, but regardless, that will hang over his head. I didn't really think there was much to add to this conversation because it's been so silent, but I do think it's interesting that Zrebic said, at this point, it's fair to question how motivated both sides even are to get a deal done, end quote. I mean, you would think that the relationship would, I don't know if you want to say go sour, but certainly would not be as strong as it was before, now that all of this has started boiling over. And the thing that I'm thinking of now is, let's say Lamar doesn't get offer sheeted. It would surprise me, but there's no offers at this rate, so let's just go with that current trend. If he doesn't get an offer sheet and he plays for the Ravens next year under this franchise tag, I think he would make $32 million. I think that's how much it's worth. But I feel like that would be such an uncomfortable situation, not just for Lamar and the Ravens, but for teammates, fans of the Ravens and of the game, pretty much everyone involved with football some way or somehow. I feel like that would just be so uncomfortable. You have a guy who wanted to get paid. You didn't want to pay his amount or desired amount, what he wanted. And now he's forced to play with you because no one else would give him a contract based off the fact that they were basically going to be negotiating a contract for you. And I see the point of view that other teams have here. It sounds like they have to either make a contract that is $250 million guaranteed plus to get Lamar, or offer anything else and the Ravens will just match it. So, interesting situation, sticky situation, really weird. It's been 2 weeks. I don't know what to do with Lamar. I don't know how long to wait. Some people have said maybe wait and see what happens after the draft. But what I do know for sure is that the Ravens certainly are not getting any better as a team with this current situation because I've said it before, Lamar is the offense of the Baltimore Ravens. And if you don't make something soon, some sort of either reparation of, hey, we're going to do this, or no, go somewhere else, it doesn't matter what you do. But at this point, what is your team's identity? Because you need to either keep Lamar and function around the idea that he is the offense, he runs the offense, we win when Lamar plays, or ship him out the door and do, I don't know if you want to say a rebuild or a retooling, but if Lamar is not going to be there, you need to completely redo your offense. And now that we're into free agency, a lot of the top talent is off the board. So you're just making yourself worse by waiting. You need to either get him under contract, get it figured out, be comfortable, or move on and starting over. Speaking of retooling an offense, the Cowboys have done some work at wide receiver. They received Brandon Cooks in a trade with the Texans. And at this point, with wide receivers, they're going to have Cooks, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup, which is pretty good. Tony Pollard will be back. Of course, Dak Prescott will be back. This likely puts them out of the running for Odell Beckham Jr., but that's more wide receiver help. There was a lot of talk last year of whether CD could be a number one wide receiver. I personally think he did pretty well. But if anyone had any doubts, well, now there's plenty more wide receivers. There's a lot more targets for Dak Prescott to throw to. Other wide receivers or players who can catch the ball. Adam Thielen has now signed with the Panthers. He is going to catch passes from whoever is throwing the football in Carolina. I don't know if that's going to be Sam Darnold. With the first overall pick, Mel Kiper's most recent mock draft, his 3.0 mock draft, he has them picking C.J. Stroud first, so maybe he's going to be their starter next year, and Thielen's going to be catching passes from him. But I do just want to say, I understand what Kiper is saying. He's connecting C.J. Stroud's play style to coaching and management with the Panthers, so that makes sense. But I do just got to say, if the goal of the draft is to pick the best player available, why would you not pick Bryce Young at first overall? He is unquestionably the best quarterback in this draft. And I see C.J. Stroud moving further up in the mock draft, cited as how he played against Georgia in the CFP semifinal. And I don't want to take anything away from C.J. Stroud. He played phenomenally in that game. And I do think it opened a lot of people's eyes as to how good C.J. Stroud is and how good he can be. However, Bryce Young has played against Georgia a lot more. He has played against SEC defenses a lot more. And time again, Bryce Young has proven to us that he can ball. And I don't know why you wouldn't pick Bryce Young first overall if the goal is to pick the best player. Okay, size complaints. But I feel like we get those almost every year in the draft. Remember Devontae Smith? When he was coming into the league in the NFL draft, even when he won the Heisman, there was talk, yeah, but he's kind of small. Okay, yeah. Still the best player in football. Still the best wide receiver. This year with Philadelphia, very, very impactful player on the team. I think it's time we move on from the size worry, because a lot of the most recent cases of that concern, I feel like have been put to rest, because the raw talent and the skill that these guys have is phenomenal. So I don't want to hear the size worries anymore. I would pick Bryce Young first overall. He's the best quarterback in the draft. The World Baseball Classic concluded last night with the final. Team Japan won against Team USA 3-2. And it ended in, the best way possible that it could have. Shohei Ohtani struck out Mike Trout on a 3-2 count. The WBC was a lot of fun to watch this year, and I've seen talk of fans wanting it to be rescheduled in the future, because currently it sits in a weird spot. March Madness is going on, so that catches the limelight, catches the spotlight. Also, NFL free agency is going on. There's a lot of attention giving to other sporting events. So I heard the proposition that what if they move the WBC to a mid-season, put it kind of around the All-Star game area. However, the MLB commissioner did say that the next one, which is in 2026, it looks like it's on a 3-year cycle, is not going to change from its March date. So it's still early. We can hope. But the Angels might be the only team not happy with how last night went, which is funny to say because Ohtani pitched and Trout played for USA. But the reports that I'm hearing that say this are Ohtani got to bask in the success and a win with a team that the Angels are not doing. He is not what he got to experience with Team Japan. He has not experienced with the Angels since he's been there. And even before this started, this being the WBC, there was skepticism as to whether Ohtani would even come back. Currently, in his contract, he's only signed through this season, and then the following season he would be a free agent. And he's shown very little interest in wanting to come back to the Angels. So, trade? I feel like if I'm the Angels, and if you get to a point where, yep, he really does not want to be here, there's nothing that we can do, you would have to trade him, because it would be better to get something back, and trust me, you would get a lot back for Shohei Ohtani than nothing at all and letting him leave in free agency. Touching on the WBC, but not the final, in the semifinal between Japan and Mexico, boy, was that a game. I just wanted to shout out Randy Arozarena, who had this incredible outfield catch. He absolutely robbed Japan of a home run. Me trying to sit here and explain it does not do it justice. I highly recommend Googling it, finding the video. There's a 1-minute clip on ESPN of him doing it. But, oh my gosh, it was amazing. That just shows the raw athleticism. But I love the confidence that Arozarena was giving off, and he was kind of glowing after he made that catch. Yeah, that was me. I did that. That was me. It was so cool. And then even the confidence that it takes to go for that, because that was a high jump over the fence to grab that ball. Amazing play. Definitely go watch that. Fun time for baseball. And, man, I'm ready for spring training to be over, because I'm ready for this MLB opening weekend to kick off. All right, concluding today with my favorite segment that we do on the show, the Dog of the Day, and I'm going to give it to Washington Capitals winger Alexander Ovechkin. Alex Ovechkin is chasing Wayne Gretzky's goal record right now, and last night he scored his 40th goal of the season. And though he didn't pass Gretzky in the all-time goals record, he did pass Gretzky for this statistic. With Ovechkin's 40th goal of the season last night, that is his 13th 40-goal season in his career. Wayne Gretzky had 12 of those. So he does pass him in that, which is really cool. Now, Ovechkin, at the age of 37, still playing very high level. I'm surprised that he hasn't fallen off. Being in his late 30s, happily surprised. I love that he's still playing and doing well. But that brings his career goal total to 820, and he's still 74 behind Wayne Gretzky. So, got some work to do there, but we're going in the right direction. There's only 10 games left in this season, and I think it's pretty fair to say he's not going to score 74 goals in 10 games. Anything's possible, but I wouldn't count on that happening. So let's just say he scores, just to make the math easier, let's just say he scores 4 more goals this year, and he ends this season needing 70 more to pass Gretzky. Well, you could do that 40-30. I doubt he would do 70 in one season. But I definitely think Ovechkin's going to need 2 more years to get this record. I think he's going to need all of the 2023 season and the 2024 season. You could break it. If it's, let's say it's 70 more that he needs by year's end, that you could break that up nicely into 35-35, 30-40, 50-20. It would probably be more along the 35-35 line if it breaks up that nicely. But yeah, shout out to Alex Ovechkin, Dog of the Day. He did take down a Gretzky record, getting closer and closer to chasing him in the all-time goals list. 74 back. Just need 74 more. Thank you so much for tuning in for this installment of the Dogs on the Hill podcast. I hope to have you back next time.